Welcome to Hospitality Unpacked. I'm your host, Noah Abel, and today we're diving into the world of luxury travel and personalized experiences with a very special guest, Kyle Seltzer. Whether you're a travel enthusiast, a hospitality professional, or just curious about the art of curating exceptional adventures, this episode is packed with information you won't want to miss. How are you doing today, Kyle?
Good. I'm good, Noah. Thanks for having me. It's a very tall order. No pressure at all to give an action-packed podcast here. So, happy to do it though, and excited to finally get on the hook with you.
Of course, yeah. So, let's kind of start with giving, if you could give us like a brief background about like how you got into the hospitality industry and what your early career looked like.
Yeah, sure. I just moved back to New York City, and I was 25 or 26, and I was working at a French bistro on 32nd and Park, and I had to wear like one of those traditional monkey suits. So I was like slinging fondues in my mid 20s, and it was a holiday. It was around the holiday, so it had to have been maybe, God, I think, how old am I now? That was 25, 15, maybe 15 years ago. So almost 15 years ago to the date, perhaps. And I had met this gentleman at a restaurant. I was serving their table, and he was, and he owned a travel agency, and they did mostly leisure trips and big events. And he said, "Hey, I think you'd be great at this." He said, and so he goes, "Come in for an interview." So I was like, "Yeah, why not?" I just moved back to New York, and I was like trying to figure out what lies ahead in my life. And so I went to interview him, and he offered to pay me a very, very meager salary that would not allow me to afford a life in New York. And I said, absolutely not. That's crazy. I wasn't ready to take that risk. But fast forward 2 years later, from then we've reconnected, and that was my first travel gig. Um, and so I worked for this gentleman for a year, as one of his team members, like a concierge assistant type role. And I had just enrolled back in business school at the same time, so I was pretty busy. But I was a quick learner, and the thing that I learned the quickest was that I think I had found my passion. So yeah, that's how I got started.
So on the topic of like finding your passion, what spoke out to you like specifically about the hospitality industry, like from getting your job in New York, like what kind of prompted you to go into this industry specifically?
I think hospitality is either in your blood or it isn't. And I think it's a pretty quick identifier, and I think it rules and spits people out pretty easily who aren't built for it. So I knew that again, I was working in restaurants when I was living in San Diego after college, and yeah, and I think my personality always lent itself, always like moving and shaking a room, and so I know how to work a room. And this is a little different because I was, behind, I wasn't at the restaurant anymore. I wasn't on my feet. I wasn't like touching tables or people, physically. But yeah, and I think, how did I know? I think I knew because I think I was excelling quite quickly, and I didn't even realize how far I was getting. And I think that's, when you have a moment to stop and reflect, that's when you're like, oh, I actually think this might be for me. So, yeah.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I definitely agree that like from what I've seen in the hospitality industry, it's definitely you either have it or you don't. So kind of on, talking about that stuff, had like you started your own company, KAX Lifestyle. What was the journey going through that? Like what prompted you to start it and what were like any major challenges you faced while doing it?
Oh, wow. That's a big question. So, I'll try to keep it concise. But so my company now, KAX, or I prefer to call it KAX, because that's okay. No, it's okay. A lot of people, I don't get upset, but if I'm if I'm on this podcast, I might as well make it clear for the world to hear. But yeah, so KAX was a brand that I rebranded about almost just over 2 or 3 years ago. But I had started in this industry. I think KAX aside for a moment, you know, because that, I mean, there's been so many evolutions, right? I'm also a person who likes to, uh, it's trial by fire for me. So like, I like to put myself in situations that aren't necessarily the easiest or most comfortable, but I just feel like that's how I mold and break, into the kind of the spectrum that I think I'm meant to be and my company's meant to be. And I would say that that in turn actually has been the biggest challenge, right? The 10 years prior to KAX being born, right? I'd always been doing the same thing. I'd always, after my first year with this gentleman, I broke off and I said, okay, like there's not much room for growth here. And I'm very autonomous and entrepreneurial anyway. So for me to work for someone is, not good for me. And it usually hits a certain barrier and a threshold where it's just not going to work for anybody. So I was quite self-aware of that. And I said, all right, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to take a leap of faith here. And I had to there were like 3 years that I was like eating chicken sandwiches and pad thai on alternating days for like 3 years in New York City, and a 2-bedroom apartment in the East Village that was should have actually been like a 1 bedroom. So I wouldn't even say that that was the hardest part for me. That was also a challenge, was to say to yourself, is I don't know what I'm doing. I could go get a job that pays me good money, and I would have stability and certainty and comfort, and I just was like, that's not for me. So I took the risk, and I had to compromise and make concessions in my life. And I would have said up until maybe that was the biggest challenge that I faced up front, was making that decision, what sacrifices I needed to make to get to the place that I thought I wanted to be, and ended up, getting to and still growing. So I definitely made the right choice there, but it's scary, right? To take that leap of faith. But I would say the real challenge has been trying to evolve what it is you want your vision to be, and to also be okay that it's going to constantly change, and that people will come and people will go. And the one thing that you, as a business owner, is you have to keep your focus and straight ahead and say, I have only me to blame, or only me to congratulate, and only me to make sure that I'm creating a community, and a team and a company that people enjoy working with and people enjoy working and being a part of. So I'd say the biggest challenge has been going through so many evolutions of what I wanted things to be. And when I rebranded like 2, 3 years ago into KAX Lifestyle, that was when it really officially became, I don't even want to say mine, because I refer to like our company as a community. So it's as much as our members, our clients, as it is my teams, as it is all the people that we work with around the world. So that vision has been realized, and now it's just take like, Michelangelo, the statue. It's like, I feel like we now have we've chiseled the marble away, and now we can now it's just about perfecting the nose and perfecting the veins and the arms and the legs. And that's how I could best, give you some sort of metaphor as to where we're at now. So yeah, I think that answers the question.
Yeah, for sure. It's really cool how you're at the point where it's just fine tuning the details of the business instead of getting the broader stuff.
Listen, though, it's a constant work in progress. It's just like ourselves. It's no different, you know?
For sure, for sure. And then you also mentioned how your business is kind of like a community, and I know you're a very social person. And like, how do you think your personality has helped you grow the business, and like being like social and active like that has helped like meet clients and stuff like that?
I hate this question, Noah. I so this is why I don't talk to. I'm not. My team has. I have a woman on my team named Heather, and she is responsible for introducing all new clients to our community, people who are interested. She explains, our membership. She explains how we work, our processes, our teams, and I'm not allowed on calls anymore with new clients because I am so terrible at this question, and I never know how to. People are like, "What's your elevator pitch?" And I'm like, I don't know. But what I will tell you, Noah, is that like for me, everything I do is um everything that I do and I enlist my team to do and the way we think is completely genuine and always from the heart and always like, okay, how can we really protect our clients' time, money, and overall potential enjoyment? So everything we do is quite altruistic, and I really just stay with that goal in mind. And then the rest just kind of comes. So, and listen, like, you know, I'm also, my personality is like, I'm a chameleon, and like I can, I can listen to people and really see where they're coming from. And again, like how I moderate my reaction and response is, it's like you have to either go up when they want to go up and feel that energy up, or like bring it down and de-stress, detangle. So it's really about listening. 90% of what we do is just listening to what people are telling us or not telling us. And then, so I would say, yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's how I kind of deal with, yeah. Anyways. Yeah.
No, for sure. And like we talk in school all the time about like social like cues and being able to communicate with people. And I think that those are just such important skills to have in this industry, and that I've seen you use in work and stuff that is really inspiring. I would like to get into a little bit about how your industry works and what you do on like a day to day. So, could you maybe like explain like what a typical day looks like for you?
Oh God, another question I hate. No day is the same.
Mm.
And every day is absolutely bonkers. Um, like it's so I can tell you how I structure my day, right? And and I will give you from the moment I wake up, because these are some tricks that I've learned, that I was taught, that I have grown to create these habits. So I usually wake up at like 6:30 usually. There's sometimes I go for a stint where it's like 5:30, and that's when I get so much done. But like, sometimes I got to give myself a break. So 6:30 I wake up. I don't sit in bed. I don't check my phone for the first hour I wake up. I shower, I shower, make my bed, come downstairs, and I meditate 10, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, depending on how much anxiety I'm feeling, right? Because I know every day that there's no shortage of emails waiting for me to action. So I'm eager to get my day started, but I also know that I have to like work on that anxiety that is so coupled with and kind of has unfortunately just been a part of, how I've grown. So I've been working on detangling that anxiety, and my meditation practice is very important to unwinding that. Then I take Apollo, my dog, out for a walk. And it's not until I've gotten my coffee that I open my phone and I look at my emails. It usually takes a few minutes for all the emails to kind of load. And then I kind of just go through and like I say, okay, if there's urgent stuff that I can answer quickly, I'll do that. But I just take a running log and I probably don't read all the emails because I won't have time, but at least then when I get back to my computer, I kind of know what I have to tackle right away. So I'm email heavy. My brain is most active and best and smartest in the morning. So I'm able to get like bigger projects done, close things out that need to like get out for the day, right? And respond to Europe, Asia, all these places that we're behind on. Then I will take my calls in the afternoon. And that works really well for me because I can really listen and I don't have to like strain my eyes on the computer and read emails and and things moving and shaking. And that's usually when we have our team calls, which we have twice a week, right? And our team calls are super important. Every Tuesday and Friday, we spend about an hour to 2 hours together as a team on Zoom, and we review every single trip that we have on the docket. And so, because we don't want any stone to be unturned. So, and then we kind of close out the day, like, from, after our calls usually end around, 4 o'clock. We have, the last couple hours, depending on where people are based, because we have people across different time zones too. So we have to moderate those schedules. Yeah. And then we close things out and say, make sure we're getting things off that need to get out so that we can wake up and have responses in the morning. Again, a lot of it is about time management, priorities, but it's really a big shuffle throughout the day of like saying, okay, this was my priority list when I woke up this morning, but 3 p.m. is completely rearranged because two emergencies happened. Someone's flight got canceled. Something happened at da 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 da. Like, so there's always something coming in to like move and shake. So we really are a team who has to be adept at, thinking quick on our feet. And so, yeah, so that I would say is a very typical day.
Yeah, well, that was extremely fascinating. I do want to ask a follow up because mental health is such an important aspect of so many industries, but I know hospitality specifically get extremely stressful. Um, do you have any advice for young people getting into the industry and any tips to like kind of help work through it?
How honest do you want me to be on this podcast?
As honest as you want to be.
I think, listen, like it's all generational. So I can't tell a younger generation who's been exposed to different philosophies and, and ways of being in life and da da da. But like, so I can speak just personally for me is, and where I come from and how I grew up and how my personality has developed is, like hospitality is 24/7, 365. I don't expect people to be, I'm not on emails for 24 hours a day. Like I know when to give myself a break, but like when things need to get done or we need an answer, if someone has the key to the answer, I need them to answer me on the weekend. Or I need them to answer me after hours because I'm trying to help move things along. And this is why people come to us. So like when you talk about mental health, it's so individual. I do think that the younger generation, I mean, I'm only 40, but I feel like I can say the younger generation, like 34 and below, like just need to toughen up a bit. I think they're a bit weak. And I think that they, and again, this is a complete generalization, but it's just like, if you don't want to do it, don't do it. But admit to yourself that like you're not cut out for it. Because I have people who are in their 20s on my team and they are thick as thieves and they can go and run. That's why when I say it's in your blood or it's not. So people who get involved in hospitality and they're like, oh my God, like I had to like, answer emails until like 8 p.m. It's like, don't do it then. Just leave. Just go do something else. Go work a 9 to 5 where you clock in and clock out. And like, I think that, but there is a general, like, my niece, she's 21 and I'm just like, oh my God, these kids, what is going on? So anyways, that is my honest thought. I think there's a mix, I really do believe what I said at the beginning, which is that it's either in your blood or it's not.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's definitely a true point. Kind of getting back into the travel industry, how do you approach crafting bespoke travel into itineraries for your clients?
Well, so the way that we, work when we engage a client, let's say it's if it's a new client who we've never worked with before, we always have what we call a concept call. And that concept call revolves around like what their idea for this trip is. And sometimes people come to us and say, I want to go to this place. And we're like, okay, why? Because we want to learn about the person and we want to learn about why they chose this place. It helps us understand their profile a little better. Not saying that there's something better, but sometimes our job is to give a full scope and say, hey, maybe there's something, different or better out there that you're just not aware of. And so we try to talk about not all the options, but hear what they're saying, take it, synthesize it, give a few other suggestions if they make sense. Or we say, you know what, you're absolutely right. We think this is great. And then we build a proposal right from the beginning. So we once we listen to them, we take one of two roads. One is we build a concept map, which gives them like 2 or 3 suggestions of trips they didn't even think that they may have wanted. The other is if we're like on the phone call, we're like, hey, you know what? This is the trip for you. Then we just go right into a proposal mode and we build things out. And we usually start presenting flights and hotels first with activity highlights. So we show them, hey, here are the hotels we recommend. Maybe it's a couple in each region just to give them an idea and explain to them the differences between these hotels and why they may like one versus another, or what one has to offer and the other, has to offer. And then we'll give like activity highlights based on what they said. So if they're like, oh, we love, private cooking experiences, we'll do something like that. If they're like adrenaline junkies, then we'll throw highlights like that into that proposal. And then we'll show them flights because logistics are important for people to understand why one destination may work better than another. Because again, a lot of people do not like to connect to get somewhere and all that stuff. So we try to nail that down. And then we dive into once we get hotels and flights sorted, we have the foundation, then we go into an activity proposal. And then the last thing we do is we slot in dining. So that's kind of the last phase. And then we usually try to get clients on a call a week, 2 weeks before their trip to review everything, like within a month of the trip. And then our final step is we send out their itinerary to all parties that are involved from the vendor side, hotels, if it's a tour operator, a DMC, a tour guide, whatever it is, everyone's on that email so that they can cross-reference their portion of the itinerary and reconfirm that everything is correct as we confirm. So that's the process. Now that's the process of working with the client. Maybe maybe another part of your question is like, how do we go about the research on our end?
That would definitely be another interesting if you could answer that as well.
Yeah. So that is, I wish I could summarize that in one sentence, but I'll tell you that it's it's all about, I think it's just knowledge and how to deploy your resources and through what distribution channels. But again, I think it just comes back to like listening to the client, and then our team does a good job of collaboration, because the way that we assign clients is based on personality less than like destination specialty. So like Maria, who lives in Italy on our team, like she's super familiar with Italy, Greece, Turkey, France. But we may have a client who's going there that works with, Tasha or Jen, but they have the relationship. And so Maria may support Jen and Tasha in the experience, in the destination knowledge. But we as a team, that's why our calls are so important, because that's also, twice a week. It's also when we brainstorm and give each other different ideas. But we have an internal chat like on WhatsApp that every day is just very busy of people saying, oh, thoughts on this, da, 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 da. And it's important that everyone knows who all the clients are, because it's, then they understand the personality, and what they may suggest may be different for this person, another. So that's typically how we go about, the research and development of the trip.
Yeah, no, that's a crazy, like, detailed and very detailed process that you go through. Are there any like changes in the industry that you've seen since after COVID, or maybe like with the new AI stuff that's going around, like anything that you may see changing or stuff like that?
Yeah. Like after COVID, I think like everyone was just trying, because we went from being completely in an industry that was completely decimated. And then when it came back with a vengeance. And then not only did it come back with a vengeance, but there were so many protocols that you had to follow, like paperwork, documents. So it was like 60 times the work and a fraction of the pay. And you couldn't hire other people because all your resources were depleted, like from needing to survive without the business for however, a couple of years. So it really, a lot of people didn't make it past COVID, right? So for those that did, like, you kind of, but I would say, like, what have I seen that? So I would say people are now, as of like maybe a year ago, really getting their feet back underneath them and stabilizing a bit in terms of like not feeling like absolutely crazy with everything that needs to be managed. But I would say you're seeing a lot of acquisitions, like bigger travel companies acquiring smaller ones and creating these like, bigger models, almost competitors with, like, you could say Amex Centurion or Amex Fine Hotels and Resorts, FHR. And then you'll see something like a company like Hello Fora, which is, although they have different tiers, for the level of agents that come in, it's pretty much like, you know, anyone can be a travel agent, right? And so you're seeing a much broader spectrum of types of agencies and how they're approaching like mass market luxury, but like they're mass market, but they're still trying to maintain the luxury. Now, I don't necessarily agree with it, but that's not my model. That's not how I operate. And I think that there's room for everyone. And I actually love that there is that, that I don't even see it as competition, but there's that competition in the space because it gives you talking points. And because we have a very specific client, we have people who actually are interested and want to get to know us, and we the same, and grow with each other. I've had clients with me for 10 years now. I've seen their kids grow up. Like that's our mission. That's our ethos. That's our DNA. And it's a much different client than someone who just wants to point and click and get a reservation at, the Edition in Bangkok because they heard it was cool, right? Without any context. So there's something for everyone. And with the with AI, I mean, we use AI on my team, couple ways that we use it. But I don't use it for, because I've set a rule, is I do not allow my team to use or even think about using AI to create itineraries, right? Because I will lose my mind, because what we do is completely custom. And you can put in and say, oh, this client's like this, and da da da. And you can create the personality and the profile, which we've started to do for some of our members, like just kind of to trial this out, and create their profile so that we have like an AI, you know, this person, so that, let's say they throw something, they're like, I want to go to, Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan or something. And we're like, okay, well, maybe I'm not that familiar with these two countries in this Silk Road region. So let me put their profile in and then explain a little bit more about what they're looking for and see what it pumps out. And then that at least gives me a quick thing, and it cuts so much noise out of the research part, that I can get faster to the point. It's no different than people coming to us and we're here to cut the noise out of the internet and all the things that, people come across on the internet. So, and then the other ways that we use the AI is like, super helpful is like, just like our Zoom calls, it helps us give a good summary of, so we don't miss anything. We always take our standard notes, but it allows us those touch points. And then we also do welcome home calls with clients. And I don't want people to be taking notes on them. I want them to, my team, I really want them to pay attention. So it's a good way to have those notes documented so we can continue to build out our clients' profiles and data points.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the AI perspective that you have is like very accurate for the hospitality industry. Like I'm, for example, writing this paper, and like big thing that like I'm seeing through my research and stuff is how like AI should be incorporated through an industry such as hospitality specifically, because it's such about the human connection and stuff, and making those connections is such an important part. So it should really only be used for like backhand stuff, because at the end of the day, people kind of want that connection and that face-to-face feeling.
Yeah, no, and I agree, and I think that that's the tricky part here, because sometimes, I mean, I'll always look at, what someone on my team sends to me to review for something, and then one of them, I'm always like, mm-mm. It's like I spy a robot, you know. So, but yeah, I agree. I mean, what we do is completely personalized, and so we use it as a resource. I would never, ever, ever, cannot ever imagine it being a complete replacement.
Yeah, no, for sure, definitely. This is kind of more of like a fun question now. What is like the most memorable like trip that you either planned or been on?
Most memorable trip I planned or have been on. I'd say the most memorable trip that we've planned was, we have a client who gifted a beautiful trip for a family that, they have a child with pretty advanced physical and mental disabilities. And she's in a wheelchair and da da da. And through some foundation, they gifted this family like a 10-day trip to London and Paris. And not only was it like just a tremendous gesture by this client of ours to, this family, but to be able to engage with this family, and again, because because we sell luxury, right? And so, maybe this is a family who's not, used to staying at, the Ritz Paris or da da da. And I always say, like, luxury, it means something different to everyone. And for this family, luxury was being able to take their daughter and their two sons to London and Paris, which they would have never been able to do on their own, and experience it through her eyes. That was the trip. It's actually a little emotional. So it's like, and because we did really nice activations there that brought back memories. Like, we did a whole picture storybook of their time, when they were in Paris, and just, and everything was like done for her so that she could experience it, and they could, she's nonverbal, so but they were able to experience it just through her energy and her movements and so on and so forth. That to me was, again, it kind of, in a way, tells you that, like, sometimes it's not, oftentimes it's not about the destination, but it's about how you're getting there and why you're going. In terms of most memorable trip, I mean, listen, like, my trip last November to Antarctica was like nothing else. The great nothing is what it was. Like, to be able to go to a place. I mean, I can't remember the last time I didn't have any service for 5 hours, let alone 5 days, completely disconnected. And it's magical.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's like one of the reasons why I personally like this industry so much, is, as you were saying, like being able to create those experiences and create the memories for people to experience in any way that they're most comfortable in doing so.
Yes, sir.
Um, kind of going time back into the article, how much do you travel for this industry? Like, what are some like other notable places you've gone to, and like what do you do on these trips that like you go on either with or without clients?
Oh, yeah. I travel a lot. I'm trying to slow it down. I have people on my team now, and I think it's important to get, them out and traveling. And also, like I want to really focus on other projects that are in the pipeline for us. And I think that requires me to stay in one place for a little bit, which is very hard for me. But when I go on these trips, it's a mix of things. I could be scouting something specifically for a client. Um, I could be going to, I mostly only go places that I want to go, which is such a privilege, right? At this stage, right? It wasn't always that way, but like I rarely am going to a place where I don't want to go. Um, and yeah, and so when I'm going, I mean, I'm doing everything, Noah. I mean, it's like a whirlwind. If you see me, you wouldn't even, it's like a tornado sweeping through, all these places every time I go. It's restaurants, it's bars, parks, bookstores, it's galleries. And but I really try not to structure my time too much because that would, first, I don't have time to do that. And second, I always like to, again, like I said earlier, like trial by fire. I just like to like learn as I go and face the struggles because it also helps me understand where the hurdles are so that I can, we can prepare best for our clients.
Yeah, definitely. Kind of coming to the end here a little bit. How can aspiring travel advisors or just people trying to get into the industry differentiate themselves in today's market?
Again, I think I have to answer this honestly. How can they differentiate? Yeah, I think I can't, I don't know. I have to think about that harder. And I don't know if I actually have an answer for how they can differentiate themselves. But what advice I can give is don't try not to give when you are talking to people. Number one, talk to as many people in the industry as you can, like who, because there's so many different models, right? From the advisory side. And there's also different things you could do within travel companies. You can do marketing, right? You can be in just like the concept side. You can, you can be on the hotel side and sales and da da da. And like, you could be in events and something like that. So there's so many different areas. So I always recommend trying to get a spectrum on both sides, right? And then if you're focusing on like advisory, you say, okay, like, because there's corporate, there's leisure, there's events, there's luxury, there's mass market and like 3, 4 star, which, is very high volume in revenue. There's flights, which is a whole separate monster. Um, so just try to like learn as much as possible. And then if you are ever interviewing, don't try to give people the answers that you think they want to hear. Just give them the answers that come from your heart and you will end up in the right place. You will always end up in the right place if you are giving honest answers and not trying to tell someone what they want to hear.
This industry is so big and so vast, and you think that like it can't get any bigger, and then you're really focusing on one group, such as advisory. Like I've learned so much today from this episode about like, how detailed they can get and all the different factors just within this one aspect of it, and it's just a really crazy uh area to work in.
Yeah, and I'll tell you that it's a it's a seemingly big industry, but it's quite small. But what makes it seem very big is it's so nuanced,
Mm.
right? So there's all these
Yeah.
like sub pockets, subcategories, this, that, different models. There's also so much improvement in technology, right?
Mhm.
Like I have a friend who, there's this amazing, restaurant app that she's working on that I think is going to be a game changer. And like there are other restaurant apps, but this is like something I haven't like seen or heard of before them. So there's a lot of different tools too, right? Like also someone who I've known in the industry for a long time, he's created and has been so successful with this commission tracking platform. There was a problem in our industry of hotels paying commissions in a timely manner. And he has been working diligently on this platform to find a solution. And he has. And it has been an incredible enhancement for our industry. So that's what I'm saying. It's also growing in how many ways it can, because how many ways it could be better, you know? So yes.
That whole side of it is just crazy too. Like all the different areas where entrepreneurs can come in and so many ways to improve and get the industry to be truly like almost perfect. But it won't, obviously, nothing's ever truly perfect. I think with that though, I don't have any more questions for you. Do you have any other, last minute tips of advice or anything like that to share?
I mean, I would just say like, I think this goes for across any profession or younger people like trying to figure out where they land, or even like listen, like the thing in like the travel industry, it's a lot of people's second and third careers, right? And I think the thing is like just be honest with yourself and like, and just know that like if you're getting into this side and you're on the agency or advisory side, like it's a privilege to be able to sell these beautiful places. It's a privilege that when your job is to try to make people happy, right? Like what a gift of a career. Now, does that mean every day is easy? No. And in fact, every day is really hard because the privilege comes with the pressure of these people's money, time, and return on emotion. And most of us in this industry are empaths and we want it to be right. So when something doesn't go right in a trip, which does happen occasionally, no fault of anybody's, it's just the way the world works. Like if there's a snowstorm or there's a boulder that blocked a road and there's an 8-hour detour now, like, and it's just kind of like, it's saying like, all right, like, yeah, we want this trip to go as well for you as you do. So yeah, but it's a gift, but it comes with a huge responsibility. And I think that if you're up for the challenge, then it's probably one of the most rewarding professions out there, for sure.
Thank you so much. I think with that, we'll end it here. Thank you, Kyle, for joining me today, and thank you everyone for watching. We'll see you next time.
Noah, it has been my pleasure.
Thank you.